In the distant galaxy of Varenthia, the air was thick with anticipation. The kingdom of Varenthia stood proud, its shining towers reflecting the light of distant stars. But beneath the beauty lay a brewing storm, known for her. Fierce spirit and intelligence paced in her ornate chamber, her heart heavy with the weight of her impending marriage. Tomorrow, she would wed Prince Kael of the Empire of Drakkar. It was a union arranged by their parents meant to secure peace between their warring kingdoms. For Lyra, this marriage felt like a cage, trapping her in a life she hadn't chosen. She longed for freedom, for adventure beyond the palace walls. Yet duty called her to be the peacekeeper her people needed. Ellen, her loyal advisor, entered with a soft knock. "Princess, it's time for your fitting," she said gently, sensing the tension in the air. Lyra sighed and nodded, knowing the day's events were unavoidable. She followed Ellen. She couldn't help but think of Kael. She had never met him, and the thought of being wed to a stranger filled her with anxiety. In the grand hall, artisans were busy preparing for the wedding. Colors of blue and gold adorned the walls, a symbol of both kingdoms. Lyra watched as fabric swirled around her, each piece carefully selected to represent unity. But would the union truly bring peace, or would it ignite further conflict? She stood in front of the mirror. Lyra's reflection stared back at her, a beautiful princess, adorned in a stunning gown. But deep down she felt like an imposter. What if he doesn't like me? She whispered to Ellen, who was adjusting her tiara. "Princess, you are strong and wise. He will see that." Ellen replied, though her eyes showed concern. "But remember, this alliance is about more than you and him. It's about the future of our people." Lyra nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Yet her heart ached for the life of freedom she had always dreamed of. As night fell, she gazed out of her window at the stars, feeling a sense of longing. The universe was vast, filled with possibilities, and yet she felt so confined. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Prince Kael prepared for the wedding in his own way. Unlike Lyra, he had been raised to accept this marriage as his duty. The Empire of Drakkar had a reputation for strength, but it was also known for its ruthless ambition. Kael wanted to be a leader who could change that perception, who could bring hope to his people. But marrying a princess he had never met felt like a gamble as he donned his royal attire. His sister, Lady Mira, entered the room. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her tone serious. "This marriage could determine the fate of our empire." Kael sighed, adjusting his collar. "I know, Mira, but what if we're just pawns in a game we don't understand?" Mira placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have the chance to make a difference. Show them that we can be more than warriors. Embrace this alliance, and perhaps you'll find a partner in Lyra." Kael nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his heart. Would he and Lyra see eye to eye? Would she resent him for this union as much as he did? As the day of the wedding dawned, both Lyra and Kael prepared for their roles in a ceremony that would change everything. Lyra's heart raced as she walked down the aisle, every step echoing the weight of her choice. Kael stood at the altar, his gaze fixed on her, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension in his eyes. They were two worlds colliding, each carrying the hopes and fears of their people. As they exchanged vows, the future of both kingdoms hung in the balance. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: this alliance, born of necessity, would test the limits of their hearts and minds in ways they could never have imagined. The grand wedding ceremony had come to a close, and the atmosphere in the palace was thick with tension. Lyra and Kael stood side by side, their hearts racing as they exchanged vows. Though the crowd cheered, both felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. Would this alliance truly bring peace, or would it only mask the deeper conflicts brewing between their kingdoms? As the last echoes of applause faded, Lyra caught a glimpse of her parents, their faces a mix of pride and worry. They had sacrificed so much for this alliance, and she felt the burden of their hopes resting on her shoulders. She turned to Kael, who was adjusting his ceremonial cloak, his expression serious. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kael met her gaze, his eyes reflecting a depth of emotion. "I suppose we must be," he replied, but we need to understand each other better if we are to make this work." His voice was steady, yet there was an underlying hint of vulnerability. Before Lyra could respond, loud commotion erupted outside the palace. The sound of shouting and clashing metal filled the air. Alarmed, the newlyweds exchanged looks of concern. "What is happening?" Lyra asked, her heart racing again. "Stay here," Cale said, his tone firm as he stepped toward the door. But Lyra felt a surge of determination. Shh. She wasn't going to hide while chaos unfolded. "I'm coming with you," she insisted. And Cale hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. They rushed into the courtyard, where guards were struggling against a group of rebels. The rebels, dressed in ragged clothing, wielded makeshift weapons and shouted for freedom from the alliance they believed would bind them to oppression. Lyra's heart sank as she witnessed the turmoil. These were not just faceless enemies. They were people desperate for a voice. "Cale, we can't let this escalate," she urged, her mind racing with thoughts of diplomacy. "We need to talk." "To them? Are you sure?" Cale asked, his brow furrowed. "They may not listen." "I have to try," Lyra replied, her resolve firm. She stepped forward, raising her hands to signal peace. "Please, listen to me," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise. The rebels paused, their eyes turning toward her, a mixture of anger and curiosity. One rebel, a tall man with fierce eyes, stepped forward. "Think we'll listen to a princess who has just married our enemy?" he shouted. "Your union means nothing to us." Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. "I understand your anger, but I am not just a princess. I am a person who cares about our people. This alliance was not my choice, but I want to make it work for everyone." The rebel leader frowned, clearly torn. "Why should we believe you? You are just another puppet in a royal game." "'Cause I want to be more than that," she replied, her voice steady. "I want to help both our kingdoms. We can find a way to coexist without violence." Cale stepped up beside her, his presence adding strength to her words. "We can create a new future together. One where we don't have to fight. Help us, and we can make a difference." The tension hung in the air as the rebel leader considered their words. After a moment, he lowered his weapon slightly. "You may want peace, but how can we trust you? Your families have fought for generations." Lyra felt a surge of hope. "Let us meet and talk. We can work on a plan together. You deserve a voice in this alliance." The rebel leader looked at her, then at Cale. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Very well. We will talk. But know this. If you betray us, there will be consequences." Guards stepped back. Lyra felt a mix of relief and determination. They had taken the first step toward understanding. Cale turned to her, admiration shining in his eyes. "You were incredible," he said, a genuine smile breaking through his earlier tension. Lyra felt a warmth spread in her chest at his words. "We did this together," she replied, realizing that perhaps this marriage could be more than just a political alliance. Maybe, just maybe, they could forge a partnership that would change their worlds for the better. Together, they looked out over the courtyard where both rebels and guards began to lower their weapons, fragile hope beginning to take root amidst the chaos. In the days following the wedding and the unexpected confrontation with the rebels, the atmosphere in the palace shifted. Lyra and Cale knew they had a long road ahead, but they were determined to turn their marriage into a force for good. Organized meetings with both their advisors and the rebel leaders, aiming to bridge the gap between their kingdoms. As the sun rose over the palace, Lyra sat at a large table in the war room, surrounded by familiar faces and new ones alike. Cale entered, a stack of reports in his hands. "Morning, everyone," he said, his voice steady. The room quieted as everyone turned to him. "We need to discuss our strategy for the upcoming negotiations with the rebels." Ellen, Lyra's advisor, nodded. "We should emphasize that this alliance can benefit everyone, but we must address their concerns sincerely." Cale glanced at Lyra, who smiled encouragingly. "We need to listen to their grievances. They feel ignored, and we must show them that we care," she added. "If we can build trust, we can create a lasting peace." One of the rebel leaders, a woman named Celine, spoke up. "We want more than just words. We want to see real changes." Our people are suffering under the Empire's rule. Her voice was strong, and Lyra admired her passion. I understand, Kale replied. What specific changes do you want to see? The room fell silent as Celine considered his question. We need resources, food, medical supplies, and protection from the Empire's soldiers. We can't live in fear, she said, her eyes fierce with determination. Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of urgency. Let's work together to provide what you need. We can establish trade routes and share resources between our kingdoms.
This
Alliance should benefit everyone. Celine exchanged glances with her fellow rebels, and after a moment, she nodded. If you can deliver on this promise, we will stand by you. But it must be a real commitment, not just empty words. Kale leaned forward, his sincerity evident. We will create a council where representatives from both kingdoms, including your people, can discuss ongoing issues. This way, everyone will have a voice. As the meeting continued, Lyra felt a growing sense of hope. They were making progress, and for the first time, she believed that their alliance could truly make a difference. After the discussions concluded, Lyra and Kale walked side by side through the palace gardens, the vibrant flowers blooming around them. Do you really think we can make this work? Lyra asked, glancing at Kale. I do, he replied, his eyes reflecting determination. But it won't be easy. There will be challenges ahead. Lyra sighed, looking out at the horizon. I know, but I believe in the potential of our people. If we can unite them, we can create a future without fear. As they walked, Kale's expression softened. You're a remarkable leader, Lyra. I'm glad we're in this together. She felt a warmth in her chest at his words. Thank you, Kale. I'm learning from you, too. Your strength is inspiring. Days turned into weeks as the negotiations progressed. The council meetings became a platform for open dialogue, where grievances were voiced and solutions were sought. Slowly, trust began to build between the kingdoms. Lyra and Kale worked tirelessly, often late into the night, drafting plans and strategies. One evening, after a long day, they found themselves alone in the library, surrounded by ancient books and maps. Kale leaned against the table, looking at Lyra with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. What did you dream of becoming before all of this? He asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Lyra paused, her gaze distant. I always wanted to explore the stars, to see what lay beyond our world. I imagined adventures and discovering new places. Kale chuckled softly. We still can, you know. Once we achieve peace, we can explore together. Lyra's heart raced at the thought. Together? Why not? He replied, a smile widening on his face. We could be more than just a political alliance. We could be partners in every sense. As they talked, the connection between them deepened. They shared dreams and fears, laughter, and moments of silence that spoke volumes. The walls that had once felt like barriers began to crumble, giving way to a budding friendship. As night fell, Lyra looked out the window, the stars beginning to twinkle in the dark sky. We have a lot of work ahead of us, she said, her voice thoughtful. Kale nodded, but his eyes sparkled with hope. And we'll face it together. I believe we can change our worlds. In that moment, amidst the books and the stars, Lyra felt a sense of purpose. Together, they were not just a royal alliance. They were a beacon of hope for their kingdoms. As the weeks passed, the alliance between Varenthia and Dracor began to take root. The council meetings flourished with more voices joining the discussions. Lyra and Kale worked side by side, their bond growing stronger as they faced challenges. Together, however, they knew that the real test of their partnership lay ahead. One morning, as the sun rose over the palace, Lyra prepared for a visit to the rebel settlement. She wanted to see firsthand the conditions the rebels lived in and hear their concerns directly. Kale insisted on accompanying her, wanting to show solidarity and support. Are you ready for this? Kale asked as they mounted their horses outside the palace gates. The air was crisp, and excitement buzzed in the atmosphere. I am Lyra, replied, determination shining in her eyes. We need to understand their struggles better if we want to help them. As they rode toward the settlement, The landscape changed from the lush gardens of the palace to the rugged outskirts of the kingdom. The rebel settlement was a collection of makeshift homes built from salvaged materials. When they arrived, a small crowd gathered, curiosity evident on their faces. Lyra dismounted and stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Hello, everyone. I'm Princess Lyra, and this is Prince Kale. We're here to listen to your concerns." The crowd murmured, some skeptical and others hopeful. A few familiar faces from the council meeting were present, and Celine stepped forward, her expression serious. "You came. That means something," she said. "We want to see how you live and understand your needs," Kale added, his voice steady. "We're committed to making changes that benefit everyone." Celine nodded, but her eyes were cautious. "Follow me. I'll show you." She led them through the settlement, explaining the daily struggles of her people. Families were crowded into small spaces, and the lack of resources was evident. Children played in the dirt, their laughter a stark contrast to the harsh conditions around them. Lyra felt a lump in her throat as she saw the reality of their lives. "This must be so difficult for you," she said softly. "It is," Celine replied. "We want to trust you, but actions speak louder than words. We need more than promises." Kale looked around, taking in the scene. "We will work to improve conditions here. We can establish a trade route to ensure you receive food and supplies regularly." As they continued the tour, Lyra noticed a group of children watching them with wide eyes. She knelt down, smiling warmly. "Hello, what are your names?" Boy, shy but brave, stepped forward. "I'm Aaron. Do you really want to help us?" Lyra nodded earnestly. "Yes, Aaron. We want to make your lives better. You deserve to be happy and safe." Kale joined in, his voice gentle. "We want to hear your ideas too. What would you like to see change?" Aaron thought for a moment and then said, "More food and games, and we want to go to school." Lyra smiled, her heart swelling with hope. "Those are great ideas. We can work on that together." After the tour, Lyra and Kale gathered with Celine and other leaders to discuss their findings. "We need to act quickly," Celine urged. "The people are losing hope. They need to see real change." "I agree," Kale said. "Let's create a plan that includes immediate assistance and long-term solutions. We can organize food deliveries and begin building a school." Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. If we can show them that we care, it will strengthen our alliance. Trust takes time, but we can start now. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the settlement, Lyra felt a sense of purpose. They were not just building an alliance. They were forging connections that would shape the future of both kingdoms. On their ride back to the palace, Kale turned to her, his expression thoughtful. Today was important. I saw hope in their eyes. Lyra smiled, her heart light. And we can keep that hope alive. Together, we can make a difference. As they reached the palace gates, Lyra realized how much she had grown since the beginning of this journey. She was no longer just a princess bound by duty. She was a leader willing to fight for her people, and with Kale by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their partnership had evolved into something powerful, fueled by a shared vision for peace and a better future. As night fell, the stars twinkled above, reminding them that their journey was just beginning. As the days turned into weeks, the alliance between Varenthia and Drakkar began to flourish. Lyra and Kale had established a council that included representatives from both kingdoms and the rebel factions. Together, they worked tirelessly to address the concerns of the people and improve living conditions in the rebel settlement. However, a shadow loomed over their progress. Whispers of an impending attack from a rival faction within the empire. Of Drac were in the palace, reviewing reports when Ellen entered, her expression serious. "There are rumors of a group within the empire that opposes the alliance," she said. "They believe that Kale's marriage to you is a betrayal." Kale clenched his fists, frustration evident on his face. "They don't understand what we are trying to achieve. This alliance is our best chance for peace. We need to address this before it escalates," Lyra said, her voice steady. "If we don't act now, We could lose everything we've worked for. Kale nodded, determination shining in his eyes. We should call an emergency council meeting. We need to inform both our supporters and the rebels. They deserve to know the truth. That evening, the council gathered in the Great Hall, tension thick in the air. Representatives from both kingdoms, along with Celine and other rebel leaders, filled the room. As Lyra and Kale stood before them, Lyra could feel the weight of their expectations. "Thank you all for coming," Kale began, his voice firm. "We have received troubling news. There are factions within the Empire that oppose our alliance. They want to see us fail." A murmur spread through the crowd. Celine stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "What can we do to stop them? Cannot let this alliance be destroyed." Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the pressure. "We need to unite our people. If we stand together, we can show our strength. We must prove that this alliance is a force for good." Kale nodded, adding, "We should organize a rally in the capital. We can invite everyone's supporters, rebels, and citizens to show that we are united. It will send a clear message to anyone who wishes to harm our alliance." Room buzzed with energy as the representatives began to discuss the plan. Lyra felt a spark of hope. If they could rally their people, they could demonstrate their commitment to peace. The following weeks were filled with preparation. Lyra and Kale worked tirelessly, visiting different regions to gather support for the rally. They spoke to citizens, sharing their vision for a united future. As they traveled, they witnessed firsthand the struggles of their people, further fueling their determination. On the day of the rally, the capital was alive with excitement. Colorful banners flew in the breeze, and people gathered from all walks of life. Lyra stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out at the sea of faces below. Gale stood beside her, his presence comforting. "Are you ready?" he asked, a hint of nervousness in his voice. Lyra nodded, her heart racing. "We've come this far. We can do this." As they stepped onto the stage, the crowd erupted in cheers. Lyra raised her hand for silence. "Thank you for being here today. We stand together as one people, united for peace and progress. Our alliance is not just a marriage. It is a commitment to a better future for all." The crowd responded with applause, their energy infectious. Kale took his turn to speak, his voice strong and passionate. "Together, we can overcome any challenge. Let us show the world that our alliance is unbreakable." As they spoke, Lyra felt the energy of the crowd. She could see hope in their eyes, a belief that change was possible. But as the rally continued, a sudden commotion broke out at the edge of the crowd. Lyra's heart sank as she saw a group of dissenters pushing through. Shouting insults and threats, Kale stepped forward, his expression fierce. "We will not be intimidated. This is our moment." Lyra joined him, her voice steady. "We believe in love and unity. If you stand against us, you stand against hope." The crowd began to chant, their voices rising in defiance against the dissenters. Unity, peace, together. Ace together realized the power of their alliance. They were not just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for a future where everyone could thrive. The dissenters, overwhelmed by the unity of the crowd, began to retreat. As the rally concluded, Lyra and Kale stood hand in hand, surrounded by supporters. They had faced a challenge, but together they had emerged stronger. The alliance was alive, and the vision for a peaceful future felt more attainable than ever. As night fell, the sky was painted with stars, and Lyra felt a sense of hope. Together, they could face whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks after the rally, the atmosphere in both Ferenthia and Draca was charged with optimism. The alliance seemed stronger than ever, and the people were beginning to believe in a brighter future. However, in the shadows, a threat loomed. The dissenting factions within the Empire of Draca were growing restless, plotting to undermine the alliance that Lyra and Kale had worked so hard to build. One afternoon, Lyra and Kale were in the palace, reviewing reports on the progress of their initiatives. "We've seen an increase in trade agreements, and the rebels are receiving aid," Kale said, a smile on his face. "It feels like we're finally making a difference." Lyra nodded, but a feeling of unease settled in her stomach. That's true, but we can't ignore the dissenters. They're still out there, and they won't give up easily. Just then, Ellen entered the room, her face pale. Your Highnesses, there's troubling news. We've received word that a group of dissenters is planning to attack a supply convoy heading to the rebel settlement. Kale's expression hardened. We can't let them do that. So those supplies are vital for our people. Lyra felt a surge of determination. We have to protect the convoy. If we can show strength and unity, it will send a clear message that we won't back down. Let's gather a team, Kale said, his voice steady. We need to ensure the convoy reaches its destination safely. They quickly assembled a group of loyal guards and rebel fighters as they prepared to leave. Lyra felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was a chance to stand up against the dissenters and protect the alliance they had worked so hard to establish. The convoy was set to leave at dawn. Lyra, Kale, and their team rode out to meet the convoy, which was loaded with food, medical, supplies, and other necessities for the rebel settlement. The morning air was crisp, and the sun peeked over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the landscape. As they rode, Kale turned to Lyra. Are you ready for this? Lyra nodded, her resolve solid. We have to show them that we will not be intimidated. Our people are counting on us. Just as they approached the convoy, they spotted a group of dissenters hiding in the trees ahead. They were armed and ready, their faces twisted with anger. Kale and Lyra exchanged a glance, knowing they had to act quickly. Form a line, Kale shouted, rallying their team. They positioned themselves in front of the convoy, creating a protective barrier. The dissenters charged, shouting threats and insults. You think you can unite our kingdoms? You're traitors, one of the leaders yelled. Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. We are not traitors. We're fighting for a better future for everyone. This attack will not succeed. As the two groups clashed, the sound of swords clanging filled the air. Lyra fought alongside Kale, her determination fueling her actions. She had never imagined herself in a battle, but now she felt a fierce sense of purpose. They were not just defending the convoy. They were defending their vision for peace. Kale fought valiantly, protecting Lyra as they battled back against the dissenters. Stay close, he shouted, blocking an incoming strike. Lyra nodded, her focus sharp. In the midst of the chaos, Lyra spotted the leader of the dissenters, the man who had threatened them at the rally. He was pushing through the fight, trying to reach the convoy. Without thinking, Lyra surged forward, determination driving her. Stop, she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. The man turned, surprised to see her approaching. You don't have to do this. We can work together, he sneered at her. You think your words mean anything? You're a fool to think this alliance will last. Lyra took a deep breath, holding her ground. No, I believe in our future. You can either fight and lose, or you can join us and be part of something greater. For a moment, the man hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Kale took advantage of the distraction and moved in, standing beside Lyra. This is your chance to choose a better path, he urged. We can unite our kingdoms and create a true alliance. With the tide of battle shifting and their combined strength, the dissenters began to falter. Slowly, the leader stepped back, uncertainty etched on his face. This isn't over, he warned. But his voice lacked conviction. As the remaining dissenters retreated, Lyra felt a surge of triumph. They had defended the convoy, and in doing so, they had shown their strength. The supplies were safe, and their message of unity had been delivered. After the dust settled, Lyra and Kale stood together, catching their breath. We did it, she said, a smile breaking across her face. Kale nodded, pride shining in his eyes. We showed them that we are united. Together we can overcome any challenge. As they returned to the convoy, Lyra felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just fighting for their kingdoms. They were fighting for hope, for a future where everyone could thrive. The alliance was strong, and together they would face whatever came next. In the aftermath of the successful defense of the supply convoy, the atmosphere in both Varenthia and Drakkar began to shift. People spoke of hope and unity, and the alliance between the two kingdoms seemed more solid than ever. However, Lyra and Kale knew that the dissenters would not give up easily. They needed to prepare for what lay ahead. As they returned to the palace, Lyra and Kale gathered their advisors and representatives from the rebel factions. The council convened in the grand hall, where tension hung in the air. Lyra stood at the front, her heart pounding with the weight of responsibility. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady. "The attack on the supply convoy showed us that there are still those who wish to see us fail. We must not only defend our alliance, but also strengthen it." Kale stepped forward, his expression serious. "We need to take proactive steps. It's not enough to react to their threats. We must show our people that unity is our greatest strength." Celine, the rebel leader, raised her hand. "What do you suggest? We need more than just words." "The dissenters are growing bolder." "Propose a series of joint initiatives," Kale replied. "We can host community events that bring together people from both kingdoms, showcasing the benefits of our alliance. We can also offer training programs where rebels and soldiers learn together." Lyra nodded, adding, "This will not only strengthen our bond, but also give our people a chance to see each other as allies, not enemies. If we can build trust on the ground, it will be harder for dissenters to sway public opinion." The council members began to discuss the plan, excitement building in the room. As ideas flowed, Lyra felt a sense of hope. They were taking control of their future, and it felt empowering. Over the next few weeks, they organized various events throughout the kingdoms. Festivals, markets, and joint training exercises allowed people to interact and see the benefits of the alliance firsthand. The celebrations were filled with laughter, music, and shared stories, breaking down barriers and fostering understanding. One evening, during a joint festival in the capital, Lyra and Kale walked through the crowd, smiling as they watched families enjoying the festivities. Colorful lights hung from the trees, and the air was filled with the sweet smell of food from various stalls. "Look at them," Lyra said, her heart swelling with joy. "This is what we fought for." Kale smiled, his eyes bright. "Yes, and it's only the beginning. Together we can create something truly special." As they continued their walk, they came across a group of children playing a game that combined elements from both cultures. Lyra knelt down to join them, laughing. As they explained the rules, Kale watched a smile on his face as he realized how far they had come. However, amid the festivities, a figure in the crowd caught Kale's eye. It was the leader of the dissenters, lurking at the edge of the celebration, watching with a scowl. Kale's expression hardened. "We should be careful. He's still out there." Lyra nodded, her brow furrowed. "We can't let him ruin this. We've worked too hard to bring our people together." Just then, the dissenting leader stepped forward, raising his voice above the crowd. "You think this alliance will last? You're fools to believe in a future built on lies." The music quieted, and all eyes turned to him. Lyra felt her heart race, but she stood tall, determined to respond. "This alliance is not built on lies. It is based on understanding and hope. We are stronger together than apart." The crowd murmured some cheering for her, while others looked uncertain. Kale stepped beside her, his presence a reassuring force. "We will not back down. We are committed to building a better future for all our people. Join us or stand aside." Leader sneered, his defiance clear. "You may have the crowd's attention now, but I will show them the truth. This alliance will crumble." With that, he turned and pushed through the crowd, leaving a trail of tension behind him. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to let fear take hold. "We need to remain vigilant," she said to Kale as the festival resumed, though the mood had shifted slightly. "I agree," he replied, "but we have the support of the people. We can't let one dissenting voice overshadow our progress." In the following days, Lyra and Kale focused on reinforcing their message of unity. They continued to host events and meet with citizens, ensuring that hope remained alive. Together, they were creating a movement rooted in collaboration and shared vision. Weeks later, as they stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the kingdom, Lyra felt a sense of accomplishment. "We've come so far," she said softly. Kale nodded, his eyes shining with determination. And we will go even further. Together, we can face any challenge. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the land, Lyra realized that their journey was just beginning. The road ahead would not be easy. But with Kale by her side and the strength of their people behind them, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. Their alliance was not just a political arrangement. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the promise of a brighter future for all.